WWE 2K25's story mode is very similar to a lot of stories within the WWE in the last decade or so, in that it is plagued by poor writing and terrible characterization, while ultimately being a massive waste of time for the most part. You play as the number 1 draft pick and get to choose where you come from. Said choices have an arrow next to them. This is the game telling you these choices will matter. Spoiler, most of your choices don't really matter, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. You are then attacked by a masked figure who turns out to either be Roxanne Perez or Tony D'Angelo, depending on which gender you start with. After you beat them in a match, because that's how all things are settled in wrestling, you see the entire locker room attacked by a bunch of NXT wrestlers before you get attacked yourself. Bayley and Kevin Owens come out to help you, only for them to turn on you and announce that they have formed a new faction called Mutiny. Their goal is to dismantle the current WWE system, as it has sabotaged a good majority of NXT call-ups in the past. Which is true, to be fair, so the motivation of Mutiny does make sense. Now, since we have a massive heel faction that has made it clear they want to effectively upend the entire company and take it over with overwhelming force, one would imagine that their contracts would be immediately terminated, especially once they move the production of NXT to an unknown location, or when they try and destroy irreplaceable pieces of WWE history, both of which would cost the company a lot of fucking money. Instead, Triple H and the board of directors decide to stay neutral.
For the past 2 months, the WWE board has kept a close eye on the movement known as NXT Mutiny. As previously stated, we've taken a stance of neutrality.
Are you and the other members of the board fucking high, Paul? Since when has letting the inmates run the asylum ever work? Also, you're expecting me to believe that a bunch of corpo skinwalking reptiles are going to lose millions of dollars and lose control over a large portion of their own roster of their own free will.
And besides, when it comes to competition, it's not just a catchphrase. It really is what's best for business.
That's true when it's another company and not a brand that has gone completely off the rails. And what competition is there to even be had with this? This shit will likely cause people to leave, if anything, driving them to the established rival promotion where this shit isn't happening. They stole the fucking WWE Championship and were going to destroy it. Then these retards give Mutiny a chance to compete for control over WWE in a best-of-3 series at Survivor Series. The most prestigious title in the history of pro wrestling, the pride of the company, was going to be destroyed, and no one on the board gave a single fuck about it. Of course, this blatant fucking retardation leads to suspicions that Triple H is working with Mutiny, which turns out to be true, in the heel ending of the story only. In the face ending, he was just fucking stupid. So the people in charge are completely fucking useless, so that only leaves the roster to try and take care of things. One would imagine that at least all of those that were attacked would form their own group to fight Mutiny. And that kinda happens with your character recruiting their old friend and then later someone from each division, but one would expect that other people would be doing the same. After all, their livelihoods are at stake. Everyone who hasn't joined Mutiny yet should be fighting back. And yes, I know there's a level of distrust on the roster given that people are joining Mutiny, but that's not an excuse for pretty much everyone besides a select group of people doing something. Yes, I'm aware that this is mentioned in the story.
Am I the only one seeing this, Oos? NXT's Mutiny out here making moves, pulling everyone to their side while people watch the uprising from the sidelines.
Pointing the issue out in your story does not then excuse the issue because it still exists. Give me a reason why most people are on the sidelines. Yeah, not everyone would do something about Mutiny, but certainly a noticeable amount would. We have a bunch of NXT guys trying to make a name for themselves. You're telling me John Cena wouldn't dust off his shovel and start burying people like old times? Hell, even the people you can recruit only start doing something when you do their missions. It's such a massive disconnect that I'm surprised I don't see more people talking about it. These missions don't even require you to be there in order for them to happen. You just have to talk to the person to proc them. Becky can try to get Bayley back on her own. She doesn't need me there to talk to her if this was the plan she's had all this time. None of these things that these characters were going to do require me there. Speaking of these recruitment missions, aside from getting the person on your side, these missions have no meaningful consequences at all. For example, Cody Rhodes and R-Truth go back in time and manage to stop CM Punk from winning the title in 2011 and get him to stop wrestling in general. No, I'm not kidding.
Well, Cody, the time team did it. CM Punk never got his big shot. He's not even in the WWE anymore. He's now hosting the third most successful hockey podcast out of Chicago. I hear it's good. Not great, but good.
So, aside from the fact that this opens up the usual plot holes with time travel, they then have to go back in time to stop themselves from stopping CM Punk from winning the title in 2011 because Orton became the leader of Mutiny instead and much earlier. And after they stop themselves, it resets everything back to where it is currently, meaning no progress at all was made. And to add on top of that, it was all possibly a hallucination brought upon by Cody Rhodes eating a goddamn Scooby snack.
I did mistake one of Pharaoh's dog treats for a protein bar right after we talked earlier. Made me pretty lightheaded, and the next thing I knew, all of this started. Maybe you've got a point.
Which means all that shit we did was a complete waste of fucking time. None of it fucking mattered. I just spent 40 minutes playing out a dog treat-induced fever dream that accomplished nothing. Arceus HD Olga, how can you honestly make something like this and not understand just how retarded it is and not feel fucking ashamed? But the wasting of our finite lives doesn't stop there. When Mutiny tries to erase Seth Rollins as the first NXT champion, he decides to challenge Trick Williams for the NXT title and puts his replica of the original NXT title up for grabs as well. Which I don't really understand why. It doesn't have any value outside of what it means to Seth, which would have been decent enough motivation for Punk to accept Seth's challenge. That title does hold a lot of meaning to Seth, and Punk, who hates Seth, would want to take that away from him. But instead, Seth chooses this of his own free will. He also suggests the match be a ladder match, a match with no disqualifications, in Mutiny territory, where the leader hates you and will do everything in his power to stop you from winning. And that's exactly what happens. Glad to see your wardrobe matches your IQ, Seth. Then he decides to reboot the Shield with LA Knight and Sheamus to win his title back. So, what exactly was accomplished here?
Punk can say what he wants about me leaving with the same belt, but we did more than that. We showed them we're not backing down. And now, we've got two more warriors in this fight. LA Knight and Sheamus are fired up and ready to take Mutiny on.
Because all the previous shit wasn't enough evidence that that was the case. I mean, in this specific playthrough, I stopped the destruction of the WWE archives and got the WWE title back and made Mutiny look like a fucking joke with a bunch of psychotic pranks. Or making our own worthless intergender tag belts to annoy them. And as for having Sheamus and LA Knight on our side, they do nothing outside of being able to sub in for Seth in his match at Survivor Series. They don't help in any other way when help is needed. Like, I don't know, helping out in the main event of Survivor Series in any way. Maybe they could have stopped Mutiny winning by breaking up the pinfall after your partner turns on you. Or how after Becky Lynch fails to turn Bayley, she does manage to turn Dakota Kai and gets her to be a mole within Mutiny. Now, of course, you would think that this would allow your team a heads up on any shenanigans, such as any possible interference in a very important match, but having her as a mole doesn't matter. It changes nothing. The utter lack of consequences extends to the choices you make in the game. As mentioned earlier, the options with the arrows are presented as choices that will matter. This is a lie. Because while the events to get to the major story beats will differ, they, much like the character recruitment missions, have no real impact on the story. If you have your male character's personality be deceptive, his first big plan to take on Mutiny is to reform the NWO to siphon off members of Mutiny who have been lost in the shuffle. This idea spirals out of control and only causes more chaos, so you eventually have to come clean that it was all a ruse and everything just goes back to normal like nothing fucking happened. You would imagine that at least the group of people to recruit near the middle of the game would change due to your actions, but nope, it's the same group of people. And yes, I do know that it was CM Punk who caused the chaos between the rosters to escalate, but you still lied through your teeth about evolving the business, which was the main draw to join you. So I would imagine that stunt would either give you less options to pick from, or attract different wrestlers with more heel tendencies. Choosing a relationship with your partner only changes certain pieces of dialogue and has no impact beyond that. It's just fluff. Which if that was the case, then don't put the arrows next to the choices, you fucking tardigrades. And with all of these consequenceless choices, it kinda makes the fact you have two different endings based on who you choose to play as after your partner turns on you a bit surprising. But even then, we have issues. In fact, it's pretty much the opposite issue, because rather than have choices that end up not mattering in the bigger picture, we have one singular choice that fundamentally alters events that it logically shouldn't. All we've done is choose which perspective to follow. That alone should not influence the events or character motivations. Triple H being aligned with Mutiny is dependent on which ending you choose, as mentioned earlier. In fact, how each ending plays out is entirely dependent on this one single choice. Things will happen differently because the developers don't understand how choice-driven storytelling works. In order for a single choice to have this level of impact, it needs to be an action the character takes, not whatever perspective you choose to follow. For example, in the good ending, it takes a month for the face to come back to the WWE, while in the bad ending, the heel gets sneak attacked after their match only a week later. In the good ending, the face recruits a team to fight off Mutiny, something they don't do in the bad ending, only getting the allies you recruited previously to help. Why doesn't the face form a team in the bad ending as well? Hell, why is the heel far more ambitious in the bad ending? Straight up taking control of Mutiny while they are complacent in being one of Punk's stooges in the good ending. Nothing about any of these outcomes can logically come from only one choice of who to follow. But cause and effect are mere suggestions in this story regardless of what choices you make or what impact they should have. And now we come to Mutiny itself. Oh boy. While I wouldn't call them the worst heel faction I've ever seen, they are still pretty fucking stupid. If their goal is to destroy the foundations of the system they feel has failed them, to the point they'll try and burn down the WWE archives and even try to erase parts of the company's history, they sure as fuck are incredibly ineffective at it. Yes, they hospitalize Cody and steal the WWE title, but not only is that locked behind a specific choice, they never do this with any of the other champions or championships. They never even tried to destroy the archives again. They don't go after the other world champion. Aside from Cody, they are mostly on the defensive aside from convincing other wrestlers to join them or having refs in their back pockets, which breaks a lot of things that I will get into right now. How in the hell does Mutiny lose any officialized match when they have refs working for them? No one in charge is doing anything about them. Apparently Adam Pearce and Magnus can't do shit to stop it despite running Raw and SmackDown. So the fact Mutiny loses any match makes them look unimaginably retarded and is a colossal fucking plot hole. CM Punk's 4D chess shit was entirely unnecessary. What exactly was the point of pretending to be on our side when it wouldn't have ultimately mattered? He still could have cost us the stupid intergender tag titles by a simple run-in. Still could have spread rumors around the locker room behind the scenes. And it's not like him knowing about our plans ever amounted to anything, making it just one big waste of time for the sake of a swerve. It makes absolutely no sense for Mutiny to ever put their control over WWE on the line in any way in the good ending. It contradicts the idea that CM Punk was this brilliant mastermind, subtly manipulating things behind the scenes until it was time to reveal himself, only to put everything on the line because you show up and attack people. Why is he even letting me into the company if he has complete control over everything and can just have security escort me out or call the police? There's nothing to explain or even infer as to why CM Punk would ever allow this to happen. How Mutiny succeeds in any way is utterly baffling, as their collective intelligence equals that of a sponge with CTE. All of this, though, the shit tier plot, complete lack of understanding of choice-driven storytelling, and utterly retarded villains could have been tolerable, at least to some extent, if the characters were at the very least passable. Unfortunately, everyone is a complete idiot. I've already given a multitude of instances of this already, so I will not repeat myself with those. What I have been sitting on is the two main characters. While they do have personalities and their dialogue does change a bit depending on what personality you choose, both are still sopping wet pieces of cardboard. Neither of them ever have a one-to-one conversation that isn't just to push the shitty plot forward. Whenever conversations about their past come up, it's never to actually help the audience buy into their relationship. Just take a listen.
This reminds me of when we first became friends. We dominated the neighborhood kids in just about every game there was. Tag, hide and seek, kickball, you name it. Until the Andersons moved in. 5 kids, all super athletic beyond their years. They took over. But you didn't get discouraged. And before you know it, we were beating the Andersons' strong and agile butts.
It's borderline Rebel Moon levels of expository vomit. Every aspect about their interactions in general never gives the impression they've known each other for years. No inside jokes or phrases, no special handshakes, gestures or nicknames, nothing. And this lack of anything substantive within this relationship makes the heel turn fall on its ass. Not only have the writers failed at making this relationship even remotely convincing, but there's nothing to even indicate that this heel turn was going to happen, both from a story and character perspective. Nothing within the plot itself really justifies it, as there isn't any indication within the events that this would happen, nor is there anything within the character itself that could hint at it either. No event that changes their perspective, no pre-existing aspect of their character that could push them down this path, no flaw or action with their partner that could convince them that joining Mutiny was the right call, not even a CM Punk Palpatine-style speech to them. The explanation that is given is fucking balls and changes depending on what perspective you choose to follow, which is again not how choice-driven storytelling works. Both explanations essentially boil down to the heel eventually buying into Mutiny's message, which again is not alluded to or hinted at in the story and comes out of nowhere, which makes me not believe for a single second, as they've only been portrayed as varying shades of good, with maybe a hint of dubiousness, depending on which personality you choose. The only thing we get that suggests a heel turn is this line of dialogue right before the second match at Survivor Series.
Yeah. Tonight is what I've been imagining for a very long time.
Which makes me think it was a last-minute addition to the story, or that none of the writers particularly gave a shit about it and needed to meet a deadline. And when we choose to follow the heel, they turn into the most cartoonishly power-hungry dickhead that you could imagine, and it's actually kind of hilarious.
Watching you hit Punk with his own moves felt so good. Therapeutic almost. After I beat Punk, the rest of them will come along. If not, they're gone. CM Punk. You won't be in the main event. You won't be on the card. Matter of fact, you won't be on any card in any promotion once I'm done with you. Out with the old and in with the new. Say goodbye to the showcase of the Immortals. It's time for Mutiny Mania! I'm honest about what I want. Power, championships, maybe even a certain amount of chaos. But the two of you get the first pick of everything I don't want. We don't have to fake any of this convoluted, equitable nonsense that Punk preached.
It's such a massive overcompensation, I cannot take it seriously. And now we move on to the major pivotal events and conclusions of this story, and more specifically, how they completely underwhelm. I will fully admit I'll be getting a bit more subjective than normal, so bear with me. One would imagine that a faction war would be settled in a major stipulation, rather than a best 2 out of 3. It's one big match, winner take all. And what better stipulation to settle a faction war than
War Games!
It might be a bit of a nightmare to play given how multi-man matches work in this game. I mean, just look at this clusterfuck right here. Jesus Christ. But from a story perspective, it would make a lot of sense. And with the stakes so high in a single match, it would, at least on paper, heighten the investment within the match itself. Or you could do a traditional Survivor Series tag match. That could also work, though maybe to a lesser degree. Disbanding a major faction that has had a stranglehold on the WWE for a month on a fuck-off episode of SmackDown is just plain retarded. Ignoring the fact that CM Punk putting Mutiny's control of the company on the line is clown behavior, why would he not do it at WrestleMania? The same WrestleMania that is named after CM Punk? That would not only play into Punk's ego, but just be a good business decision as it would drum up a lot of interest. People love high-stake matches, especially ones with a lot of history behind them. But no, it happens on TV in a tag match, which Mutiny shouldn't even lose due to having refs on their payroll. And one would think that a betrayal on such a personal level would lead to a personal and violent conclusion, filled with venom and hatred, ending in a bloody and brutal match that leaves the audience exhausted in the spectacle. But instead, we have just a normal-ass match in the good ending, no special stipulation, no prompts to make them bleed, nothing, just a normal wrestling match. And while there is a Hell in a Cell match in the bad ending, it comes after the match that was supposed to be the last one. Another match on a fuck-off SmackDown, by the way. But it's used as a plot device to turn on CM Punk. And later, your partner comes out as a temporary distraction during your match with The Rock. This is basic wrestling storytelling. When you have people turn on each other after years of friendship, you build that hatred to a boiling point and blow it off in a brutal match. But here, we have it either being used as a means to push the story forward, treating it as an afterthought, or being slapped on at the end because we couldn't be bothered to spend making an additional hour of content to try and make the hatred these two have for each other now more visceral. Absolutely pathetic. Well, that was cathartic. Thank you all for sitting through this. It may have been a bit scatterbrained, but I feel this is a decent way to ease myself into the realm of game critique, while also letting me talk about a form of entertainment that I have a great amount of respect for. Now, hopefully WWE doesn't decide to drop the elbow on me.